Welcome back to another episode of BHAW Radio. This is episode 61. I'm your host, Brian Rowan. Tonight, we've got a fun one. We've got Lane Peters on, and Lane's done an episode prior talking about his journey to West Point. Just check out that episode. But tonight, we have Lane on as the Prepster coach, giving us an update, right before the season. And technically, their season already started. So I want to welcome Lane on the show. It's, great to have you on. Pumped to talk wrestling.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So, you guys just I was looking at your social media, seeing, your guns, you're hiking, you're doing all that stuff. You did a little bit of wrestling too. How was it at the Air Force Academy?
It was nice. It was a good trip. We've been planning to do that trip. The prep school has for a couple of years now, and obviously had some adversity there with the pandemic and things like that. So it was good to get back out there. But we were really excited to get on the mat, and we definitely seized that opportunity. It worked out well where we were kind of matched up with Air Force in terms of weights and things like that. We've got a lot of light guys, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but and they had a lot of light guys, so that worked out well for us. But we were able to kind of double it with an Air Force football game and an Air Force lacrosse game, which we took home 3 W's. So Commandant was happy about that. We were happy about that. But it was a great trip. And like you mentioned, kind of had some fun between whistles too. Did some hiking, took him to Garden of the Gods, linked up with Army wrestler Major Anderson. So got to see him and his family there for a little bit, as well as Ben Harvey, who's also out there at Carson. So good to see the Army wrestling family wherever we may be in the country, and certainly had some fun on the mat too. Nice.
Were they able to go to the match? Like, or was it just like you saw them in the off time, or how was the?
Well, both. Yeah, both. We saw them on the off the mat, and then they also came. So we didn't do a traditional dual meet, where it was like in a gymnasium or anything. We just did live matches in their room, but they were able to come to that, as well as some USMAP staff that was out there too. So we saw them, both on and off the mat.
Nice. Is anybody else out there? Was anybody? I should do a better job as kind of the facilitator of. I consider myself like the BHAW events coordinator.
Right.
And as you said all that, so I was like, I should have put a post out or something like, hey, the Prepsters are coming out to, the Air Force Academy, who's in the area, hit up Lane. Here's his Instagram.
Yeah, you're right, B-Row. We should have been more proactive on that. That's on me too. I think we got Jack Buell out there, 2020 grad, as well as Matt Kelly. Matt Kelly's either there now or just left. But I know those two are out there as well. Those are the most recent grads that I know of. I'm sure we've got some other ones a little older that I'm not aware about. But we did have a couple more people out there we could have reached out to for sure.
Nice. So where are you guys getting that funding? I mean, I think when I was at the prep school, was down at Fort Monmouth, I think our furthest trip was Nassau Community College.
Yeah. Well, we lucked out, like I mentioned there. We doubled it with the football game. When you hop on the football funding, you typically do better than you do otherwise. But we also flew out on a C-17 out of Stewart. So from one military base to another, obviously the flight was free. The deal was that we were like a training element for the Stewart Airfield staff. So we kind of helped them out. They helped us out. We stayed in the barracks there at Fort Carson. So we roughed it for sure. But that made it even more fun, So I think that's kind of how we got away with it in terms of funding.
That's the way to be anyway.
Right.
You can fly a whole team out there and, fly out there and stay, be housed for free. I mean, that's the way to go. Yeah.
And like I said, the roughing it kind of made it even funner. And nobody had been on a C-17 before, so that was a unique experience too. We got to go up in the cockpit during flight and see that as well. So super cool experience all around for sure.
Nice. So diving in kind of like and that's like the right now. Let's take it back a few months. You come in as a prep school coach. Talk to like what it's like being, getting into coaching, being a leader, kind of from that standpoint. We've talked about the prep school a bit, but and we've talked to AIs a bit, but not from necessarily like that lens. And you're in the middle of it right now, so yeah, it's very fresh on your mind.
Yeah. Well, I'll start out by saying, if anybody follows me on social media, they probably saw me mention this, that it's been very rewarding. It's been more rewarding than anything I could have done individually. But it's certainly more demanding than I expected, to invest in other people like that. And there's just a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that I was kind of unaware of. As an athlete, you show up, you make weight, and you kick butt on the mat, and you turn around, you go home, but you don't realize all the logistics that go behind it, whether it's the Army stuff in terms of like transportation and funding and lodging and meals and all that, or whether it's coaching and individual needs, team needs and everything like that. So it's been very demanding, but like I said, it's been very rewarding. I think, I've had great mentors in my life, and Major Will Simpson particularly. I gave him a call the other day and said that I've always felt connected to him. We have a lot of similarities and same branch and just, man of faith and a lot of things that I kind of lean on him for. But particularly in this job, because he was the prep school coach when I was there at the prep school. So leaning on him, leaning on Coach Ward, leaning on even the wrestlers, just kind of figuring it all out myself. But I love the job. It's a dream job. And if I could somehow stay there for 5 years and fulfill my Army commitment, I certainly would. But I think they're going to kick me out at the end of the semester. So it's been certainly a learning curve, and I wouldn't trade it, but I'm very excited to compete and kind of get some results. And see the fruits of that labor kind of thing and make the necessary adjustments as we always do in the season, So like you mentioned, it's only just beginning, but I'm very excited for it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's probably gone by super quick too. And
Yep.
You mentioned all the logistics and everything that goes behind everything, that it's added on, especially this year with Tyler Smith, leaving and taking another coaching job. Talk to us a little bit about that transition. I'm sure that when I talked to Coach Ward, and that kind of came very suddenly when he, when Bucknell had that opening, and I don't blame him. That's where he went. That's his alma mater. That's a great opportunity for him. But kind of leaving that all in your hands. What was that like? Was there a lot to kind of take care of? From that standpoint, I mean, we haven't always had a prepster coach, on the civilian side. So I'm sure it wasn't the end of the world, but, talk to us about that transition a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny to be real because, I obviously didn't plan for that. We were coming in August, and I was talking to Tyler back when he was, still on the staff on paper. And I was like, hey, are we going to get, prepster picnic together? We didn't really know what the COVID mitigation, regulation was for that. But long story short, we kind of threw one together. And then it wasn't long after that he had mentioned to me and then to the team that he was going to be leaving for Bucknell. So it's funny because I almost didn't have time enough to kind of process it and think about it until you're thrown into it, which looking back, I think is a good thing. You don't know what you're capable of until you're kind of thrown into it. So I'm kind of glad that I didn't know that it was coming, So like you mentioned, I know that before we've had graduates come back as the AI coach. So I knew that it was possible. I knew that people had done it before. So I'd reach out to various individuals that had done it in the past. And so that was pretty cool to kind of have that Army wrestling community, kind of foster me that way. And that's the thing that I love about our community too, that, there's always somebody that has went through it before you, whether you're going to a new duty station or a new job or whatever it is, you can kind of lean on each other there to figure that out. But like I said, not knowing that it was coming, I think kind of helped me, so, but it's something that I've wrestled my whole life, right? It's not something that, I'm new to. It's just now taking what I've done and now teaching it. So there's certainly a learning curve, and it's easy to go out and, hit a certain technique. But when you explain it to somebody fresh out of high school at 17 years old, it's like you find out that maybe you don't know it as well as you thought you did. So going back and that's the beauty of this day and age too, that you can watch, Flow Wrestling or give somebody a call that showed you that technique and ask the specifics of it. I give Coach Ward a call, Coach Joe a call all the time. Pull it up on Flow Wrestling, break it down and then translate it that way. But it's certainly different than, like I said, than going out and competing. But yeah, that's a little bit about that curve.
So you spoke a little, as soon as you got there and you came back, you guys had that little ice cream social. As I was like thinking, okay, what can we talk about on the episode? I thought, one of the topics we had to address is like, that Kevin mentioned before was like, molding cadets in that, 47-month experience. And, you having it from the start, even before, they're cadets, taking new cadets and seeing that transition in the first couple months. What is it like, I guess, specifically the guys that you're the wrestlers there, how has that transition been so far? Have you lost any guys yet?
Yeah. So no, we've not lost any recruits. We have a couple, preferred walk-ons on paper. I don't even really know exactly what that means, to be honest with you. We have one change of heart there, but others than that, our core recruits, we've had, no losses there. And it's cool to see them kind of grow, closer to each other and grow as wrestlers, grow as, future leaders and things like that. So no, we've not had any losses. it is unique in that, here we obviously have the military side of things and also the wrestling side of things. And you'll hear different people say like, make sure that I heard one of the teachers, I think, asked one of our guys, and it was kind of a loaded question the other day. Did you come to West Point to wrestle? And, of course they're like, well, yeah, I came to wrestle, and that's not the right answer. And so one thing that kind of like sticks out to me is that, you have different people saying that you can't buy into fully just that you're there for one thing. And what I would say to that is that you can buy in fully to our program. And here's why: because our values align with the values of the institution, so getting them to buy in fully to their wrestling identity in turn gets them to buy into West Point as a whole. So seeing them grow into their new identity as cadets or whatever is pretty unique to do it through the lens of wrestling. Because I would suggest that's one of the best ways to do it, and shared hardship like that, and particularly our sport, we know how much that offers. So I don't know, it's different because it's like nothing they've done before, so it's cool for them to come. We got kids from the West Coast that have never left the state of California, and now all of a sudden they're both in the Army with their head shaves and also wrestling Division I level. And seeing them kind of, lean on the team and lean on me and the rest of the staff down the hill, it's pretty unique.
Yeah, and then they wake up this morning and it's 29 degrees. It's not California.
Right. Yep.
I had to whip up my phone and be like, what was the weather in Highland Falls this morning? I was like, holy crap, 29 degrees.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We just took an ACFT, I think it was yesterday, and it was so evident to see, who was from where and who was wearing multiple layers of the PTs and things like that. So yeah, they stick out like a sore thumb, that's for sure.
So let's talk specifics on some of the recruits. Talk to us about, kind of how many you got there, kind of, where are they from, how they're looking. You don't have to, we don't know who's listening in, Colette, and his crew may be listening in. So we want to go, super, super in depth. Don't be like, hey, Johnny's got a sweet headlock,
right.
Let's keep it a little more high level, but try to get specific for our fans a little bit more.
Yeah. So we got 9 recruits, and I'll tell you, be real. I'm very glad that I went through Army West Point when I did, because I think that our program is outpacing the level that I and multiple wrestlers in the past ever competed at. I think about these guys coming out of high school, and it's like the level that they're wrestling at now. I mean, I feel like they're wrestling, second and third year college level kind of competition. So we got 9 recruits, and like I mentioned, ranging all the way from the West Coast at 125 pounds all the way. Multiple Midwest guys, even some local guys in New Jersey. We don't have any heavyweights this year, but we do have a 197 pounder, our Moan, Ohio native. But he also wrestled in Indiana in high school. But I'll go by, just kind of name by name. But we got Charlie Farmer from Illinois, 125 pounder. I love Charlie. Charlie works hard. He's somebody that, a lot of people kind of struggle to understand, because he does things that aren't normal, and he does them for a reason, but he's very dedicated. He's a stud on the mat, looks to score for 7 minutes. So he's got a bright future. He's disciplined with his weight, disciplined with his lifestyle, careful with who he hangs around. So I think he's got a really bright future, as do a lot of these guys. But we also got Nine Vasquez, also an Illinois boy, wrestled at Izzy Style Club, which we work out at when we go to Midland. So good connection there. But he and Charlie, they battle it out, almost daily, and has a very unorthodox kind of style, but it works for him. And it's cool to kind of watch him, do that with the guys down there. So, and then we've also got Ethan Burgeon. So we're kind of loaded, like I said, down low, but these guys are all at 125. Ethan's kind of battled some injuries early on. He fractured his wrist wrestling, but he's recovering well, doing all the things right there. And he was a guy that wrestled at Young Guns in PA. So he certainly knows wrestling. As far as technical soundness, he's a guy that, I even pull him aside and I'm like, hey, how do you hit this technique? Because I can see from the outside looking in that he knows what he's doing. He comprehends when somebody teaches to him, and he retains it well. So all 3 of those guys are at 125. And so if you're wondering about the future of Army West Point at 125, we can kind of sleep well at night knowing that, those guys we're in good hands there. We hope that they stay little, and we've struggled with that before, where we recruit somebody for 125, and next thing you know, Peter Ogunsanya is wrestling 149 and could easily wrestle 157 at the NCAA tournament. So
that's what I was going to say. I mean, you can recruit, 5 guys for 125, and you get in that mess hall, and you get through that beast summer, and in the fall, next thing you know, the season comes around and you're 155 pounds. I
Right.
don't know if you're going to be making 125 pounds this year.
Right. And that's why I kind of preach to them. And I think our program has kind of had like a change of, change of heart here, or change of culture rather. And that, you don't have to cut weight year round per se, but, wrestling is a lifestyle, and particularly here at our program. And so kind of preaching to them, like, just because you're at the mess hall doesn't mean you got to eat what everybody else is eating. You can control your portions. You can get an extra workout in, do whatever it is you need to do. But yeah, I think they kind of represent that well too. They stand out within their peers too in terms of discipline and things like that. So I feel confident that they can do so. But moving on, 133, we got Raymond Lopez. I don't know any of the Army Wrestling Insider subscribers would know. We did an article about Raymond the other day, but he comes from Fresno, California. Love Raylo. So we call him Raylo, obviously, his new adapted nickname. But Raylo is a ball of life, smiles from ear to ear, every day, wrestles hard. Now we're trying to get him to wrestle smart. There's a difference in the two, but you'll never have to question Raymond's work ethic. So he's kind of the life of the party. He's like the team clown. But he too has a bright future if we can, make some slight technical adjustments, but he's a lot of fun for sure. And then we got a couple of Jersey boys at 141, and Shane Pursley and Eddie Hummel. So love both of these boys. Shane Pursley's kind of battled a little bit of an injury with his knee here in the beginning, but wrestled hard at Air Force. And Eddie actually was hurt a little bit too with a banged up ankle, but he too wrestled at Air Force. Both of these guys, they're from the same area. They know each other well. They wrestle frequently, and they provide the typical, Jersey comedy that they always do on the team. So really excited about those boys, and they actually have a connection with Mark Montgomery on the team. I think one of them actually wrestled with Mark in high school. So it's always good to see, kind of the connection with the guys on the hill, but very excited about both of those boys at 141. And then we've also got Ryan Franco, another California boy at 141 from the Fresno area as well. So he and Raymond know each other pretty well. So they wrestle, quite frequently. So if you're doing this math in your head, all these names are at 141 and below. So we're obviously pretty bunched up there at the bottom, which, iron sharpens iron. So it's good to have all those guys kind of beating on each other in the room daily. And then even when we do RTC practices down the hill, they get a hold of the lightweights there, and it's fun to watch them scrap. But that kind of rounds out our lightweights. And then we got Trey McDaniel from Tennessee, from Chattanooga area. So familiar with, Coach Ward and his network down there. Very talented young kid. He's kind of yet to grow into his body, but he'll grow into it and grow into it well. He's very, very explosive, very talented in terms of technique. And it's kind of somebody that wrestles unorthodox and maybe gets away, with strong hips. And so I'm trying to condition him to get in better position, and when he does, so he's got a bright future at Army West Point. That's for sure.
What weight class is he?
Say that again.
What weight class is he?
He's a 149 pounder right now. He doesn't cut any weight. I can see him being there for a couple years or so, but he's certainly got the frame to put more on him too if we want. But he's a great student as well. I think he actually had the highest GPA on the team this semester. So you love that, when you can worry about a guy taking care of the stuff off the mat himself, and when you come into the room and worry about wrestling, we always love that. So, like I mentioned, as a lot of these guys do, have a very bright future. And then we got another California guy, 149, and Ryan Alvarado, preferred walk one. Ryan's been really battling some injuries, but I love Ryan's work ethic. I love guys like that on our program, and he too is a very good student. I've not really got a chance to watch Ryan wrestle and compete on the mat, but I can tell you he sure looks like a wrestler, and his attitude is contagious and it's positive. So love having him around too. And then moving on all the way up. So we don't really have any middleweights, but we got, those little guys, some 49 pounders, and we go all the way up to 197. And I mentioned Eli Pack earlier, but he wrestled at Clover Academy in Indiana in high school, but he's a Columbus, Ohio native. Eli certainly has some learning to do on the wrestling mat, but great kid, great character, love his work ethic. And, guys like that just need time to figure it out. You need time to learn a little something about themselves and learn to be okay with fatigue and learn to be okay with getting beat on and being aggressive. Think about Eli Pack. I kind of thought to myself the other day, and he and I had a conversation. He's such a kind-hearted person. He sometimes has trouble being so physical on the mat. And I tell him that if you really love somebody in our room, then that means that you'll kind of demonstrate what other people would call tough love. We would just call it love. But, to be physical with somebody and take him down 5 times in a period, if that's what it takes. But in his head, I don't think he's quite grasped that yet, but we'll get him there. And right now we got another preferred walk-on in Declan Griffin from Massachusetts. Good hard worker. Love having him around. But that kind of rounds out, our 11 guys, so to speak.
So when you say preferred walk-on, is that, I'm guessing that's they were able to get into the prep school, but they weren't like chipped, I guess, as you'd say. And then they have to, like, once they get through the prep school and get to West Point, then they'll be like on the team. Yeah,
such a good question, Vera. And I don't really know. From my understanding, a preferred walk-on means that we didn't use a chip on them on the admissions board. And, the coaching staff elected to allocate those elsewhere. But like you said, they get into West Point on their own. So they're certainly all good students or provide some, benefit to the academy in some aspect. So like we got 2 of them right now. And I don't know what their future holds on the team. I know that we've had guys in the past that, walk on or whatever it is. That process is pretty informal and it looks different year by year. So, we certainly love having them around right now. I don't know what it looks like for them in the future. So that's all I know, really.
Do you guys have other walk-ons that come at the prep school that just like wrestle on the team? When I was there, it was like, you'd have like, let's say, 8 to 10 like recruits. Then you'd have like another 10 guys that like at the prep school who just like might have wrestled or like you just kind of want to fill up the room and like,
right.
I don't know. We had a bunch of those guys. I don't know if does that still exist?
Yeah. So when I was at the prep school 5 years ago, we had a couple, walk-ons. And they would even compete for us in dual meets and we won a couple of dual meets because of it, so, but this year we do not. I had a couple, I had multiple, like you mentioned, I think we had 9 or 10 that tried, but with the quality that we had, I kind of elected to keep the group smaller, more intimate. We have a couple of managers. We got 3 managers that are fantastic for us. And they were gentlemen that tried to, walk on. And I said, hey guys, like this is where we're at, but this is where we need help. If you guys want to do so, I'd love to have you. And they've kind of tackled that. And Michael Hill, Jesse Arenado, and then Hiram Flores. If they're listening, we really appreciate everything that they do. So they were guys, like I said, kind of tried to walk on, but to answer your question more specifically, we don't have any walk-ons this year. So there's pros and cons to that. I love the gentleman that walked on with me when I was at the team, and it was good to kind of have outside perspectives like that and a couple prior service guys. But with the level that these guys are at, I thought it best to kind of keep it more intimate, so no, but
appreciate that. So getting into kind of the preseason now, did you guys, what did the preseason look like? Did they just, because they come in later, like mid-July, and then they get through CCBT. Do you guys start preseason right then, or does wrestling, talk to us through that kind of a little bit, how you guys orchestrate getting into the regular season?
Yeah, no, it's not much different than the academy during CCBT, which is their version of Beast. We have mass athletics. So during that time, it was more come in, work out if you want, but more just get to know people, maybe, roll around, break a sweat, whatever it is. But as soon as CCBT was over, it was kind of your typical preseason. And, I kind of seek the wisdom of some coaches that I had in the past. And there were our fair share of ski slope runs and, plate workouts and things like that. But we actually spent a significant amount of time on the mat wrestling. There's a difference between being in running shape, but to wrestle for 7 minutes and to wrestle 6 matches in a day at Division I level, well, hey, you got to wrestle for that, So that was kind of what I really advocated for. And like I said, we did our fair share of trimming the fat off of them and doing the ski slope runs and using the track and doing intervals and all that stuff. But we spent a lot of time wrestling and wrestling for a longer period of time, maybe with some more rest in between the preseason, while the guys are getting their weight down, getting in shape. We covered a lot of technical positions. You got some guys coming out of high school that maybe didn't have the best technique in certain areas. So kind of spent some time where, it was evident that we needed the time. But that was kind of, my philosophy, and that let's get these guys good at wrestling. These guys are at this level because they know how to wrestle hard. They know what the sacrifice takes. We did a lot of mindset work as well. So that was something that I kind of utilized CCBT for. That was time that not everybody wanted to get on the mat after training all day, but we could, get a mental sweat in. So using, kind of some work between the ears, which, I personally think is extremely important, maybe the most important thing about our sport. So kind of inculcating them in like the Army wrestling culture, everything from lifestyle to BHAW, to how it is that we want to represent ourselves on the mat, and making sure that they understood that before, even a single whistle blew. And that was what was so rewarding about Air Force, is that when those whistles did blow, it was so evident, in our culture and the way that we train, the way that we represent ourselves. It was awesome. And I can talk a little bit more about that if you'd like, but that was it. To answer your question, B-Roll, it was more, wrestle a lot, cover positions that are important, and kind of be more specific in our training with each individual person. The closer we got to season, kind of work, more one-on-one with some guys. Their schedules are a little bit different. So getting the work where they need there. But now we're kind of the typical, early season kind of training cycle where we have a competition, November 7th. So, you modify a little bit from the typical schedule then. But that's kind of what it's looked like to this point.
Nice. So Jesse Delvecchia came on the show
Yep.
like 2 days ago, and he was talking about like doing a lot of individual workouts. He was like, yeah, sometimes I have like, most days I'll have like 2 extra workouts where I'm working on guys, but sometimes it's 3, 4, 5 extra workouts outside of practice. And I'm like, dang, that's a lot of wrestling. That's a full-time job right there. Cause I think of like your coach's job. I'm like, okay, your coach practice. I'm thinking like, okay, you're out of West Point, or you're out of the practice time. You're probably getting 1 extra workout in, maybe with some guy, with a guy or, that. But when he's talking, I'm like, man, this is, and he's not even working with, that many guys. This is,
right.
6 or 7 guys that he's working with, but he's they're all getting extra workouts in each day. He said he was, he's lighter now than he was, this time last year competing, because he's working out so much more.
Yeah, which I think that speaks volumes, Vero, to like people that aren't internal to our program and don't see that daily. They don't quite understand what our volunteer assistants and like our athletic interns and Bobby Heald and Trey Shelifo down the hill do not see the work that those guys put in and how valuable they are to our program. Particularly Jesse, I cannot speak enough to like, the work that he did. That was a fantastic pickup for our program. And like, you mentioned, he's doing 5, 6, 7 individual workouts a day. And guys like Benny Pazook and Marcus Hartman, Peter Ogunsanya, those guys, like they need somebody like that that's been in the NCAA finals, can kind of kick the crap out of anybody. So yeah, I mean, you nailed it there, and that people don't see that kind of stuff, but they're extremely valuable for sure.
So, so looking ahead at the season, like what's your schedule look like? You mentioned you guys just got back from Air Force. You headed to East Stroudsburg this weekend, or is that?
Yes, sir.
You guys going to do?
Yeah, East Stroudsburg this weekend. Following weekend, the John Costal Open at Binghamton. And then the following weekend, the Shorty Hitchcock Invite, Millersville, Pennsylvania. So all quality tournaments to round out November. And then going into January, we have a duel with the Spartan RTC, which for those that don't know is basically just Cornell's red shirts. So a quality dual meet at home there. And then we got, I believe, the Bob Quaid Invite after that local tournament. And then to round out, we got one more open there that I'm kind of forgetting about right now. But then into the new year, you got ones like the Franklin and Marshall, the Edinburgh, the National Collegiate Open. All those are quality tournaments. So they'll certainly get a chance to wrestle this year. And then we'll round out the year with a tri meet against Navy and Air Force Prep, both coming here to West Point. So I personally won't be here for that. I depart at the end of the semester, but they will be in good hands, whether it's with Lieutenant Shelifo or whoever kind of takes command there. But that's what the schedule looks like for them this year.
Is so that's not, you don't have like somebody coming back for like the next 6 months. It's gonna be somebody that stays there.
To be honest, we don't know what that looks like. So we know that Trey's kind of might hang around West Point. So ideally, he kind of takes over. He's been in and out of the room right now with us. But nobody is slotted on paper to kind of take command. We've recently added a new staff member to the RTC staff, and I don't know what I'm allowed to say, for logistic reasons or whatever. But so the fact of the matter is that somebody that we know and trust will be there to take over for him, but we don't know exactly who yet.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's all I got as far as topics. I may be coming to East Stroudsburg Open on Sunday. I may drive up. It's only like an hour.
Okay.
Minutes away from my house. So
yeah.
I'll see.
Yeah, we'll have you there.
Are you guys? There's going to be a lot of could be potential battles. Jesse said they're bringing like 25 guys.
Yeah.
Bringing the 9 guys up. So between at 125, there's probably going to be like 6 Army guys wrestling. So
Yeah.
they're running into each other a few times.
Yeah, and that'll be cool to see too, because we see them in the regional training center environment, and it's funny because some days we go down there and we feel good about ourselves going down there, and other days not so much. So it'll be cool to see in that competition environment with singlets on and whistles blowing what happens. But I know one thing, B-Row, that these guys, they certainly know how to suffer. They know how to represent themselves well, whether it's, wrestling on the edge or wrestling through a whistle or looking to score for 7 minutes, and the physicality that comes along with college wrestling. You can trust that if there's an Army prep matchup, that there will be fireworks. And so we look forward to that for sure.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate you coming on, sharing all this stuff. Our listeners appreciate it. Well, as the season, progresses, we'll like to have you on, before you head out for the semester, kind of give a wrap up of how they're doing. Because I want to keep, we've had that feedback from listeners is like, it seems like the prepsters, nobody talks about it.
Right.
Because Kevin can't really talk about it as much, I think,
right.
NCAA stuff, but, fortunately on BHAW radio, we don't have any rules, so we can do what we want.
That's right. Yeah. And I recognize I didn't really get very intimate in the one-on-one, and I would certainly love to do so later. We just don't necessarily, have the time and the competition to do so right now. But like I said, the future is bright for all of them. So I look forward to later in the season, getting into the specifics there.
Are you guys going to do any duels with like I remember there was always a prep school duel when I was there with West Point. We traveled up. You guys doing an informal thing like that?
Yeah, great. I reached out to the coaching staff and they wouldn't even wrestle us. So I tried to line up. I don't know what they're wondering from, but they wouldn't wrestle us when I tried to reach out. So not this year. At least it's not on the schedule yet. Maybe I may have to take this as a soundbite and start and promote it. Yeah.
Get some back and forth going.
The tail to take videos and throw all over social media. But no, we're not wrestling them yet. But like I said, they'll get quality matches regardless.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you hopping on, taking some time. I'm sure listeners appreciate it, but BHAW, be Navy.
Hey, thanks, B-Row.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in to the BHAW radio show. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. If there's something you'd like to hear on a future show, reach out to us on any of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Or you can reach us at email, bhaw.radio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and as always, go Army, be Navy.